have reason to be hopeful. And even with all of the great, in my view, disgusting things going on with the state budget and all of that, we still in California are the 7th biggest economy in the world. We're still the 7th biggest. And fortunately for us, our economy is really a diverse economy. Dean read some of that when he's talking about the Commission on Economic Development, and the work we're doing is to take a long, serious look at the California economy. How do we build it? What are the opportunities? But it's a very, very diverse economy. We've been on this housing bulge, and obviously that's one of the big problems. Another big problem is Wall Street went crazy and didn't have a regulator to keep them under control. So these things went on. I know a little bit about regulating the financial industry, okay? I've done it for 8 years of my life, and I understand the necessity of it, and clear rules and clear enforcement, and you get out of line, you get whacked. Well, that didn't happen with the rest of the financial industry, but for the most part, the insurance industry is pretty healthy, at least by comparison. So anyway, put that aside. The housing industry is in the tank, but the need for housing is there today. Population grows, people need housing, so it will come back. Once this financial market gets squared away, it'll come back, and hopefully not the same kind of craziness. I think we're going to live in a little smaller houses going forward. They call a 1,800 square foot house a cottage now. I don't know, when we bought our first house, we thought 1,200 was a big house, but 1,800 is a cottage. Anyway, we're going to see some modifications and changes. The agricultural industry in California remains, even with the water and the drought issues, a big industry, a stable industry, ups and downs with prices, but stable. We have an aerospace industry in California. Direct employment, probably somewhere between 270 to 300,000 people directly employed. It's changed. We don't make many airplanes anymore. We still make a couple of them. But we build the more sophisticated aerospace things, satellites, rockets, to the telemetry, the computer systems, what those satellites are doing looking down on the Earth, much of which is highly secret, some of which isn't. Make use of it. Everybody got their little cell phones out. We can Google Earth. It's California, okay? So we have a very solid aerospace industry. The computer industry remains here in California. Silicon Valley is still Silicon Valley, still doing the software, still doing that, and transitioning. I'll come back to the transition in a moment. We have a transportation industry. It's huge. It's down now with the overall economy of the nation and the world slowing down, so the transportation industry, now called goods movement. You got to learn the new words, goods movement. Don't go look for a job in transportation, look for a job in goods movement. Things you got to learn along the way. And the healthcare industry in California is growing. Why?
Getting older.
There's nobody in here with gray hairs, but you will have gray hair, and you know that whole demographic bulge is going to cause the healthcare industry to grow, and we really see incredible growth in that industry. So you look at the California economy, it's really an economy that is very diverse, which is a very, very good thing. We don't depend, like many other parts of the state and other parts of the nation and other parts of the world, on a single or one or two economic bases. We've got a diverse base. Now, if we are really on top of this and start thinking into the future, there are certain key things we need to do, and unfortunately, some of these are not being done. In fact, we're going in reverse. In the early 80s, mid-80s, I was chairman of the Joint Science and Technology Committee. We were scared to death of Japan. They were going to take us over. And actually, they bought a lot of California, and then things didn't work out for them, and they sold it at a lower price. Anyway, we looked at the California economy and said, what do we need to do to be successful in the future? And there were 5 things. I've added a 6th one in the years since then. I'm going to go through them very quickly. You've got to have the best educated workforce in the world. Okay? Fundamental. Those of you that have had the opportunity to travel around in other parts of the world, and you maybe have studied economics or economic development, you'll note that What other parts of the world are doing is to copy what California used to do. Best educated workforce in the world. We really are falling off this, both at the K through 12 and higher education system. And that brings me back to the budget, which I'm not going to talk about, but anyway. Second, best research in the world. Now, for those in this area, we happen to live in an epicenter of research opportunities. The universities here in Berkeley and Stanford. Did I offend somebody? No, they're good. They're really good over there. But we do have, in the state universities, San Jose, East Bay, Cal State, San Francisco, these are incredible institutions, a lot of research going on, and of course Lawrence Livermore Lab, Lawrence Berkeley Labs. We are really in the epicenter of research. Out of that research comes manufacturing opportunities. So that's the third point. You got to make things. And we used to say manufacturing. Now manufacturing may include software development and things that were not necessarily done before. Third, or fourth, you have to have a solid infrastructure. Now, when we did this in the 80s, we didn't think about the internet infrastructure. It really didn't exist. Which brings us to the fifth thing, which is you have to be international, the whole international market system. And finally, the sixth one I added, which brings me back to the whole telecommunications, internet, that whole communication infrastructure change. You got to be willing to change. And many, many of you in this room are in the process of changing. Now, if we're going to be successful in giving you an opportunity to change, you're going to have the education, re-education, the new techniques and technologies that may put you in a completely different part of the workforce, which is something that's happening more and more common, is that people no longer have one job. How many of you have had three different careers? Yeah. 4? Okay, 5, 6. Well, that's the way it is now. You move from one career to another, which brings us back to the very first thing I talked about, which is the well-educated workforce. A well-educated workforce is able to change and adapt.